When only the Slayer was left standing on the battlefield, everyone present, former opponents, friends, spectators, all felt something curious. This battle was very different from the previous two. It had neither Martsu's violence, nor Wang Zheng's desperation of beating back the Arbiter brothers. The Slayer was complete. It was at peace. It was noble. At this moment, everyone realized something. The person before their very eyes, known as Wang Zheng, was dominating everything. Xiao Fei smiled lightly. Lady Xiao's intellect was top class. Even if she did not understand mecha, but she was no complete stranger either. She merely believed and supported in her own way. Her indifference to the result had been born of her worry. Wang Zheng did not need more pressure. But seeing the Slayer's performance, Xiao Fei did not care how much skill had been shown. All she knew was that throughout the battle, Wang Zheng had controlled the pace. Perhaps there had been some unforeseen variations, but the situation had never been out of control. This was life. One could not expect everything to go according to plan, but the best could always integrate the variables into their plan. The Slayer meant a killer. A demon. This was the strongest existence on the battlefield. The pinnacle of savagery had finally fallen, but the Slayer had not. In this battle, the might that Wang Zheng had demonstrated was overwhelmingly holistic. This was something that a single challenge could not bring out. This was true composite strength, enough to satisfy all the professors of the school. Yet, none of this was necessary nor important now. At this moment, what was needed were cheers. The entire Elite Academy X was impassioned. Everyone, including both grudging and convinced opponents, had to stand up at this moment to pay homage to this person. He was the greatest king. He had finally won. Zhang Shan and the rest were whooping madly. They rushed onto the training field. They could not believe that all of this was real. It seemed like just yesterday that he and Wang Zheng were worrying if they could stay at Elite Academy X. And now, they stood at the pinnacle of Elite Academy X. The undisputed peak. The winner of the Greatest King Battle's first iteration. This was no luck. They had beaten the strongest Arbiter and Aslan teams to emerge at the top. Martsu was applauding, and Olivius as well. This was a sign of respect to their opponent. This Greatest King competition had meant a lot to them as well. When the outcome was finally decided, none of that honor mattered anymore. It was necessary to let go of what they should. The entire Elite Academy X reverberated with cheers for the Greatest King. And on Earth, Moon, Mars, more than 10 military schools cheered for the same thing for the first time. After so many years, internal strife, grudges, losses, and more losses had plagued the solar system. In this moment, the solar system team had finally won glory. And as the core, Ares College had completely lost their minds. More accurately, this wave of enthusiasm had spread through the entire upper district. In a major international competition, Ares College students had defeated Arbiter, defeated Aslan, and taken the title of greatest. Even the average citizen received it like heavenly news. It was such a far-fetched thing. A few middle-aged people were roused to remember their own youth. Ares College's recruitment hotline was bursting. The post box was brimming with countless consultation and report documents. Nobody believed that talent alone was enough. Because if that was the case, no one could hope to compete with Aslan and Arbiter. Wang Zheng had displayed fortitude, will, and passion with composure. This was what was most moving. What kind of military school could raise such a fine fighter? Wang Zheng had done it. Leading Saruman Snake, this ragtag team had created a miracle, and defeated the opponents who had once looked down on him. Wang Zheng had been hoisted up, and thrown around. For a while, he would not feel solid ground again. Most importantly, Wang Zheng and the Saruman Snake team had done something else, which was break the domination of Aslan and Arbiter. This was also something that the professors wished to see. Humanity needed to progress. If the Milky Way was to find balance, it needed even more new powers for balance, which could bring forth other powers. Without question, besides Arbiter and Aslan, the other countries had all been longing for a miracle. Even other superpowers like Manilasua were happy to accept this outcome. It was better than always seeing the sour face of Arbiter or the pasty white face of Aslan. Many soon found out that even those opponents like Dendi or Pampas could find it in their hearts to be happy with this victory. This was what Wang Jung had achieved, and some could never do. A certain person had received the news on Tita Star as well. Lear indeed could hold it in. Lear now was like a wild man. After such a long time spent outdoors, his hair and beard had grown long. Fatty was not doing well either. But after hearing the news of Wang Jung's championship, Fatty did not cheer, but stood silently at Lear's side. Anyone but him could cheer. What was more painful was the bootlicking from the former opponents. This was something that Lear could never do. Two shadows disappeared into Tita Star's forest. Time would go on. The school was not tight-fisted either. They had thrown a magnificent celebration for Saruman Snake. Elite Academy X was not a prison. Some things were taught by the military, and not here. Within the cheers, Wang Jung saw Aina, who coincidentally met his eye. She could feel his eyes burning with a conquering flame, naked yet with a wild sense of protection. It was a look that Aina could not dismiss, and was scared to meet. Her team had lost, and she had not even felt denial or unhappiness. Aslan's team could not possibly stay at this celebration long. In this battle, 2 of their members had been wounded. Wang Jung's killing power was too terrifying. The Atlanteans had used their taboo powers to bring forth overwhelming strength, but still fell under the calm hand of Wang Jung. It was not much to triumph over the weaker, but defeating such a worthy opponent was the most fearsome thing. It left one's opponents in despair. Heracles was frustrated, but he was not the first to lose. The projector screen displayed an analysis of Wang Jung's battle. Each scene brought forth more cheers. This was even more awesome than the result. From start to finish, the Slayer had completely controlled the distance, minimizing damage. This was the Slayer's original intention, to play the distance and make the strongest attacks. Z movement again and again, without the slightest mistake. How long did one have to train to be able to do it? In a normal battle, Wang Jung's ability X was not that remarkable. But he had used foundational moves and the basic nature of ability X to its finest. A complete domination. And amidst the crowd of Elite Academy X, the rush from the replays was too overwhelming. Some had started to faint, and were escorted out by those around them. Luckily, at such gatherings, the school had arranged for medical personnel, otherwise there would have been complications. Such excitement was indeed not for those with weak hearts. The textbook dodge and attack over and over again, it was a perfect work of art. The frame froze on the Slayer's last attack, confident and stable. In truth, faced with Atlantis, runic shield technology that was revealed for the first time, no one knew how to beat it, including Wang Jung. Only one who was truly strong could remain confident when faced with a problem, and maintain an indomitable attitude. The extremely draining movements compounded with the burst shots, rendered ineffective again and again. Anyone else would have started to doubt themselves after 3 failures, and given up after 5 failed attempts. Those who persevered 10 times were monsters, and Wang Jung had actually done 20. Until the opponent crumbled. Such perseverance was the most unnerving. This was a warrior's soul. Inner strength was the real might. The greatest king made Wang Jung famous. Everyone around the world knew this young man called Wang Jung. But his background was ordinary and unremarkable. He was just a young man from Ares College. He had moved step by step from IG to Elite Academy X, and finally gained glory. Saruman Snake Battle Team would undoubtedly celebrate. The good times in life must be enjoyed, and one should relax when the time called for it. This was, of course, orchestrated by Ai Xiaolu. Miss Ai was over the moon. To Ai Xiaolu, who was disinclined to believe in miracles, this had been unreal. Saruman Snake's members, as well as members' friends and family. This time, there was no fear that not enough people would come. There were too many who wanted to come. Not just these, but there was a whole horde of classmates who would want to come. They might have been gilding the lily, but at this joyous time, they should celebrate happily. Staying up through the night was compulsory, and the school would not care either. These youngsters should be allowed to relax. This greatest king had ended wonderfully because of Wang Jung's appearance. It was a realization of this competition's purpose. Now the galaxy needed to awaken the potential of the mighty, and at the same time demonstrate battle team battles. Of course, battle team battles did not mean that the individual was ignored. The battle team was made up of individuals. One had to choose well between individual potential and individual sacrifice. That was the message that Elite Academy X wanted to impart to every student. Tempest and Dendi had received invitations as well, and both came. Although neither battle team was counted as a success score-wise, the entire process had been a valuable experience, and they had made many fast friends. The entire night Wang Zheng was drinking. He could not refuse. In the end, student Wang would definitely go home lying down. Even God could not quell the volume that these brothers quaffed. The next day, Saruman Snake's members would sleep until the sun roasted their backsides. The accumulated stress and fatigue were all released in one go. Wang Zheng woke up and looked at the warm sunlight streaming through the window, quietly savoring the peace. He knew that others might savor the experience for a long time more, but to him, the greatest king competition was over. In this battle, his improvement and baptism had been of utmost importance. Especially through this process, he had been at a loss and filled with doubt. But in the end, he had made the correct call, and his teammates had backed him up. Now, everyone thought that Wang Zheng was too awesome. He was not just individually awesome, but he could motivate a battle team, and believe in them. To have such a leader was a blessing for any member. But what others did not know were Wang Zheng's own doubts and struggles. At times, he had felt their lineup was helpless. More than once he had been tempted to go at it alone. But after agonizing over it, he understood something. He must learn to believe. Otherwise, the Saruman Snake battle team would not be where it was today. Being racked with doubt was an experience that everyone had to go through. But as long as one persisted, regardless of the result, in the end one could turn back and face everything with a smile. A new day was beginning. Student Wang went to class like normal. Battles were battles. Actually, many classes at Elite Academy X covered a wide range of topics. And the professors' standards were recognized. Even if they were not world class, they were still excellent. For example, psychological control, facial control, and other such small tricks. These things had no direct relation to battle, but were widely relevant. Only now Wang Zheng was completely different from before. Almost everyone he passed smiled at him. Of course, even at Elite Academy X's level, there was no one who was on Wang Zheng's level. The greatest king's power was too awesome. Babes he passed made eyes at him and blew kisses. It was normal now. It was not just Wang Zheng. The Saruman Snake battle team members were the same. Before defeating Aslan and Arbiter, they would be getting all kinds of rude comments, but that was normal. Imperial Glory and Asura had accumulated their wins until now, and it was natural to be popular. There was no reason that a new battle team should be more popular than them. Being questioned was part of the path to success. But as long as one could stand the pressure and eventually triumph, then the reward would be multifold. Fame followed merit in this greatest king competition, and no one would doubt their value. If it were not for Arbiter and Aslan's all-out, this greatest king moniker would not have the meaning that it had now. In the next few days of class, Wang Zheng was exasperated. His normal life was indeed interrupted, but he could handle it fine. Once he entered study mode, those stray thoughts disappeared. Zhang Shan was handling it fairly well also, perhaps even better than Wang Zheng. Zhang Shan accepted all followers, but resumed his usual state during class and training. This was a personality thing, although it was rumored that student Zhang Shan recently had a new target. He seemed to be chasing Sweeney. As for Zhang Shan's companions, they had nothing to say besides that the kid liked a real challenge. Everyone's lives had changed. Saruman Snake had changed as well. Vincent and the rest had gradually become the new face of Elite Academy X. During the practical training, he became a role model. But the one who changed the most was Mu Gen. Tita Star did not have the resources of Atlantis or Maya, and the giants did not have that kind of intellect. To Mu Gen, fighting was not the problem. The difficult thing was getting along with humans. Hungry. Wang Zheng smiled. It was already noon. Mu Gen nodded honestly, receiving the food and laying into it heartily. It was evident that Mu Gen's mind was on the battle. Ada, so many people want to be friends now. I'm tired. Mu Gen rubbed his head. Recently, Mu Gen had been hiding. He did not know how to deal with all this. Wang Jung smiled. Mu Gen, human speech is just for formality and courtesy. The most important thing is that you don't need to change humankind. While you learn and understand, just focus on yourself, and be true to yourself. Ada, do you mean I can stay in the dorm and not go out? Mu Gen happily asked. Wang Jung was taken aback. Kiki, Mu Gen, that's a choice, but it's running away. You forget that you represent the Tita people here. You have to bravely accept new things. That's the mark of a warrior. You're not just in Elite Academy X, but also in the heart of the Milky Way Alliance, Roland Garros. You should get out more, just like on Titatitan. Roam the streets, eat out, make new friends. Let more people know about Titatitan and the Tita people. This was the real reason why Mu Sen had let Mu Gen follow Wang Jung and leave Titatitan, and the real purpose of entering Elite Academy X. It was something that Wang Jung could not help with. This step had to be taken by a Tita person, Mu Gen, for it to be meaningful. And Mu Gen could not follow him around like a child. A light breeze wafted over. The leaves rustled. Wang Jung looked at Mu Gen's forlorn form and smiled. There's a battle mech course tomorrow. You can follow me for that. Besides that, there's a warship navigation segment. You go by yourself for that. Try making some human friends. Mu Gen smiled happily. He had been worried that he was a nuisance. Rufin was a long distance away, looking at the pair under the tree. One was her idol, Wang Jung. Saruman Snake's captain. He was so handsome, swoon-level handsome. His casual gaze had such a sharp look to it. As expected of the almighty demon Wang Jung. The other was the target she was interested in. The Tita tank simpleton, Mu Gen. At Elite Academy X, battle was just one aspect. There were also many other aspects and study directions, like science and governance, although they were not as flashy as battling. Rufin was a science specialist. Her ability X was photographic memory. She was able to memorize huge loads of information in an instant, as well as complete the categorization and basic analysis. In terms of scientific use, this was an extremely powerful ability X. Rufin's hobby was quite unique, which was studying civilizations. The mysterious and elegant Atlantean civilization, the low-profile and luxurious Mayan civilization, Ghana Star's multi-tribal fusion. Rufin had started a civilization research association at Elite Academy X, and had found quite a few comrades with like minds. But problems emerged as the association grew. It was quite pleasurable when a few people sat together to chat and research one civilization. But once the numbers grew, it was hard to get a word in, and things got messy. There had to be structure, some procedural research. But at Elite Academy X, there was no good research partner. This was the Humans Elite Academy X. The association only liked to talk war theory on paper. Until the Atlanteans and Mayans had joined Elite Academy X. Rufin had been filled with joy. But her pleasure turned to disappointment very quickly. They would not even entertain her. She had tried to stop them on their way twice, but met with their wrath and was immediately knocked out. When she came to, they had already left. She could not even start a conversation. Atlanteans apparently hated this kind of research, and would show her no courtesy. The Mayans went without saying. The moment a member raised the idea in a meeting, the Mayans would raise an uproar. In truth, who was willing to be studied? Even if the intentions were good. Rufin did not like giving up. Perseverance was her strong point. The vice chairman, Wei Ying, was always trying to talk her out of it, and she was always pressing the issue. In the end, the Atlanteans would put up with her no more. The moment they sensed her presence, they would immediately vanish. If they could not fight, they would hide. However, Rufin still gleaned some things. The process of hitting a wall was also research. She could discover some new details. In truth, the Milky Way Alliance had long done related research, with formal experts and on a much wider scale. If she wanted to make new inroads, she had best find a different path. She had gritted her teeth to finally write a thesis on the shyness of the Atlantean civilization, which left Maria speechless. In the end, Aslan had intervened to settle the matter. Just as Ai Rufin was considering her next step, Wang Jung had brought Mu Zhen back. Tita person. So huge. Ai Rufin's attention shifted. At least Di Maria and the Mayans had breathed a sigh of relief. After all, this was a human world. They had received some orders from their own countries before they came as well, and they had no wish to get into trouble with these sorts. Ai Rufin had also learned her lessons from the Altantines. She could not be too direct. Nobody liked to be stared at as research. She had not really liked the greatest king competition from the start. At the start, she had no real interest. But because of Mu Zhen, she had grudgingly supported the Saruman snake battle team. Once the factions had emerged, watching the competition was no longer as simple as mecha bashing each other. She had been hooked as the situation developed, at times moved, at times worried, and at times happy. The impulsivity of youth was infectious. Wang Jung had brought victory time and again, and Ai Rufin regarded him as an idol. That sort of feeling was difficult to put into words. Like Lin Weiyan, before she had attended her live concert, she just felt that her songs were not bad. They were nice to listen to, and meaningful. But after attending one live concert, under the dim lights, her view was colored by the beauty, and she again heard the angelic soul of Lin Weiyan. As though life had changed. This made Ai Rufin want to study Mu Zhen all the more. Her interest and worship merged as one. The feeling was great. I have classes in the afternoon. Go around by yourself. Be brave. Wang Jung still encouraged Mu Zhen. Mu Zhen hung his head and sighed. Perhaps he really should get to know other friends. Mu Sen, and the Council of Elders, were always worried about this whenever they spoke to him. Mu Sen had worn out his ear every time. Oh, Mu Zhen, in the human world, you must follow the human way. The caveat being not causing Ada any trouble, you have to get along with humans. Getting along. It was not something you could teach, and what Mu Zhen wanted to learn was independence. Mu Zhen scratched his head, looking at the disappearing figure of Wang Jung in the distance. He was a little at a loss. He had no class today, so he could not try making new friends in class. Sigh, that big-sized guy who sat beside him in class looked like someone he would have a lot in common with. In some dormitory of the school, a 2-meter-plus macho guy suddenly got the chills. Just as he was considering who would be better to approach, Mu Zhen was startled by Ai Rufin, who had appeared in front of him. A beautiful, little girl. Hello. Ai Rufin took the initiative to say hi. The picture of a big guy brooding under a tree had moved her. The original plan had been to observe from a safe distance for a time. Hello. You are. Mu Zhen blinked. I'm called Ai Rufin. A supporter of the Saruman snake battle team. Can you give me an autograph? Me. Autograph. Mu Zhen sheepishly pointed at his own nose. He again looked at the little girl. She wore a pair of thick square spectacles that framed her sharp features. Her pink lips smiled convincingly. I want to be friends with you. Is that all right? Mu Zhen was stunned, but happy. Sure, just like when you were sleepy, and someone delivered a pillow. And this, little girl, had an aura a little like a Tita person. Seeing Mu Zhen's smile, Ai Rufin suddenly felt a little sheepish, because she could sense his sincerity and how much the word, friend, meant to him. And her own motives were not simple. Actually, I really want to research the Titatitan people and understand you. Could you help me? Research. Mu Zhen was a little confused. I just want to be friends. I'm serious too, I'm not here with bad intentions. I like the Saruman snake battle team, and I'm curious about the Tita people. Ai Rufin was already prepared for rejection. As you're the pioneer of the Tita people, you should be brave enough and let other humans understand you, and understand Tita Star. We're one big family. Only when more people understand you can we build a peaceful alliance. Ai Rufin said sincerely. She had heard of Tita Star's situation as well, and was apprehensive that Tita people might not bear too much goodwill to humans. Mu Zhen frowned. Sounded logical. Slice up. What slice up? Ai Rufin was shocked. Do you like sliced bread? Seeing Mu Zhen's troubled face, Ai Rufin could not resist laughing. This was a classic case of watched too many movies. When Irufin explained that all she wanted to do was talk and better understand Tita people's habits and customs, as well as Tita Star's wonderful Aboriginal culture, Mu Gen laughed sheepishly. From far, Wang Jung looked at the two and shook his head, smiling. This was a good start. Just as Wang Jung had predicted, the school came looking for him. More accurately, looking for them. Elite Academy X was a specialized school that represented humanity's direction. This college did not exactly need idols and models. On the contrary, the school calmly and fairly handled such matters, from individual to national level. This greatest king competition had already achieved all its aims. But now the drawbacks had to be taken care of. The students could immerse themselves in the joy of battle for a while, but learning and training were serious things. After some time of celebration, the students had to calm themselves. Besides, it was not suitable for those like Wang Jung to remain at the school too long. This was nothing personal, but a custom that had begun before Martsu and Hakatalan. Those in the meeting room were all familiar faces. When Wang Jung arrived, Martsu and Olivius were already there, as well as the long-absent Lear. The moment he saw Wang Jung, Lear actually smiled. Tempest and Dendi had arrived as well. Not long before the six arrived, Professor Zhang Feng appeared. Martsu, Tempest, and Dendi already knew what they were waiting for. For Wang Jung, Lear, and Olivius, it was their first time. I think you might have guessed. Firstly, congratulations. Your performance at the Greatest King competition has been recognized by the school. In order to elevate your abilities more holistically, you will begin to undertake special missions for Elite Academy X. Martsu, Dendi, and Tempest are already old hands. You can formally graduate after finishing this mission. Wang Jung, Olivius and Lear, you three are doing this for the first time. There are some things I need to caution you about. Zhang Feng looked at the six youngsters. Each had a look filled with confidence and steel. Youth was a wonderful thing. In their hearts, they must have felt that nothing in this world was impossible. The missions you will face are different from those before. Some cannot be solved with violence alone. But all of these missions have a commonality, which is that the death rate is 90%, Zhang Feng mildly stated. He looked at their carefree expressions and could not help smiling. This was youth. You can choose to back out now, but if you choose to continue, you must see it through. This has nothing to do with bravery. I hope you can make a rational decision, Zhang Feng said. He thought he had made it clear. No more emphasis was needed. The six of them had no reason to back down. It was not that they had never been in danger, but that they had confidence in their abilities. Zhang Feng wasted no more words. Each of you will take a mission. It's all up to fate. Remember, each mission is confidential, and you cannot tell anybody. All of your mission details are logged in the archive. Of course, if you die, then it's all moot. Each of them took turns to choose a number. Wang Jung had mission 5. Very well. The related details of the mission will be sent to your Skylinks. The arrangements will also follow. I wish all of you success, Zhang Feng said. Oh yes. Do you know how heroes die? Wang Jung and the rest were puzzled, but Zhang Feng did not seem to require an answer. Seeing the six of them leave, Zhang Feng shook his head. In truth, he had hoped that some would back out, because these six were truly excellent. A pity that at this age, very few understood fear. But on the flip side, if they came back alive, then they would be transformed, regardless of the mission outcome. Only, these missions often changed a person. Many geniuses and elites had neither died nor completed the mission, but they never returned to this world, forever plunged in the darkness. All six knew that they were done with matters regarding Elite Academy X. It was time for them to look ahead. School life had been safe and blissful, but they would have to face the world sooner or later. In truth, Wang Jung, Lear, and Olivius were unafraid of any challenge. Tempest and Dendi could not pass up on this opportunity. Their next step was whether they would enter Earth rank. And this mission was the deciding mission. If they completed it, their starting point would improve by leaps. If they backed out or failed, then it was a different matter. Clearly, Elite Academy X had nurtured their appetite for risk. Nobody was willing to begin at the bottom. Who would not want to be a hero in this world? Wang Jung's Skylink very quickly rang. His Mission 5 Planet Maklu. Maklu. Wang Jung felt like the name rang a bell, but he was not clear. But checking information in Elite Academy X was a simple matter. Planet Maklu, a famous fallen angel planet. One of the 10 great criminal planets. A criminal planet was a gray region that had emerged as a result of historical or political factors. These planets were linked to monopolies, military cliques, and even pirates. They were gray worlds that straddled the light and dark worlds. Maklu was one of them. This planet was fairly harsh, but produced a rare mineral resource. In the beginning, an explorer had discovered it, but the mining environment was harsh, and the mineral resources' radiation and interference handicapped the efficiency of robots. Therefore, they had chosen to use criminals. As the numbers rose, all kinds of agents had gotten involved, and given rise to the Maklu of today. Humanity's world was never only made up of absolute black and white. Maklu's existence solved many problems, but as it developed, it also brought many complications. Everyone was familiar with such gray planets. They were already much better than pirate worlds. Violence was regulated, slavery was permitted. The Alliance's demand of Maklu was the mineral resource, while Maklu traded the mineral resource for the facilities and supplies it needed. As for politics and other issues, of course Wang Jung need not concern himself. Even the Alliance Council chairman could not solve the problem. But Wang Jung's destination was this planet. But as far as he knew, this planet's customs check was even stricter than immigration. How would he enter? What was his mission? All Wang Jung had was the destination. He did not even know the time. But after receiving the mission, Wang Jung was already prepared to leave at any time. After all, he did not have much to prepare. Saruman's snake had one glory, and basking in the glory was not Wang Jung's custom. His blood thirsted for challenge, and to become stronger. He could not compare to Martsu, Olivius, and even Achilles. These people had capital, and perhaps it was not a level competition in school. But once in society, whether they entered the military or otherwise, one would realize that results weren't worth a damn thing. Wang Jung was, of course, not naive enough to believe that an Earth-rank warrior would be treated differently. Heaven had been the case study. But Wang Jung did not feel that this was unfair. Fate was something that one changed themselves. Yan Xiaozu and Yi Zixu had already made great strides forward, and he had his own things to do. He would begin from this mission. The school's efficiency was higher than he expected. That night, Wang Jung had virtually no time to bid farewell to anybody before someone took him away. 2 hours later, Wang Jung was on the shuttle departing Roland Garros. On the entire journey, nobody spoke a word to him. Wang Jung was gloomy. It was a mission, he got it. But why did it seem like he was being sold? Would it kill them to tell him anything more about the mission? Wang Jung waited alone in the cabin. Panicking was useless. If he did not even have this amount of patience, then he would not have dared to be so confident in Zhang Feng's face. This continued for about 2 more hours. The door opened, and a major of about 40 years old walked in. He looked at Wang Jung's water on the table. The major looked at Wang Jung for a few seconds. What follows is your mission details. Your name is now Sunday Zhao. Citizen of Earth, and then migrated to Mars. Imprisoned for arson, then you broke out of jail. Your mission is to confirm the Easter plan's concrete details. Got that? Wang Jung nodded. What was FC King difficult to remember about that? The question was who had given him such a shish tty mission name like Sunday Zhao. Major, what is the Easter plan? And how will I get in? Suddenly, the major snapped his fingers, and Wang Jung's vision blacked out. The world spun. DMN, to do this to one of their own. Clearly, the good thing about it being done by one of their own meant that they understood Wang Jung's body's limits, and could adjust the dosage accordingly. Wang Jung felt his body being moved, and then he did not feel anything anymore. After who knew how long, Wang Jung slowly came to his senses, but the scene he opened his eyes to left Wang Jung thoroughly shocked. Wang Jung gradually came to his senses and smelled a stench that combined sweat and smoke, among other unpleasant things. Even if this was not the worst that Wang Jung had ever smelled, it was close. The light was dim. From the way it felt, he was in the cabin of a shuttle. There were many people around, in roughly the same state. Some were thronging about the leftovers. There must have been about 50 or 60 people in the room. Each stood in their place. This had to be a warehouse. What kind of hellish place was this? Wang Jung regulated his body and let himself become alert. He was wearing a suit that was a little stained. His skylink was gone, replaced by a strange, black bracelet. Punk, you're up. You're real good at sleeping. We'll be at heaven in a day. From nearby, a middle-aged guy carefully opened a box. After hesitating for a while, he handed Wang Jung a stick. Wang Jung took it, and the middle-aged man lit his own, and then Wang Jung's. Wang Jung did not smoke, and the man laughed. A cautious one, aren't you, lad? Go on. It's a waste of money to poison you. Poison's more expensive than smokes nowadays. Wang Jung did not react. Where are we? Wang Jung's brain was responding quickly. Looked like the military had delivered him to his destination, although this method of entry was a little harsh. He did not particularly mind their ways, but they could have at least let him know. Why did they have to do it that way? But such notions flashed by him. Once the mission begun, he would have to discard all notions of pride. The unfortunates were divided into two extremes. Some were ranting, and some were brooding. This middle-aged guy belonged to the former. He did not have to get the other guy started. He was once a very successful manager, but a moment of greed had caused him to fail a shipment and incur a huge debt. Such luxury goods were not so easily paid back, and in the end he had decided to come to give Maklu a try. Maklu produced rare minerals like high magnetism ores. Even with protective gear, it would cause great harm to the body. There were two types of mining on Maklu. One type used slave labor. That's right, slave labor. They came to Maklu with all kinds of reasons: no freedom, crimes, or debts they could not clear, etc. This middle-aged uncle was rather fortunate. He had mostly settled his debt already. The other type were the desperates, either here to gamble, or to seek asylum. If one did not have enough money, mining was undoubtedly a good choice. Free men could dig for diamonds. Although they could not take them away, they would receive ample compensation. One could make a fortune overnight. The important thing was that in this period, those outside could not bother you. The middle-aged guy was still bragging about his past glory. If it were not for that error, he would be among the upper class. He did not even care about how Wang Jung came to be here. He just wanted to find a listener on this lonely journey. Wang Jung sorted out his thoughts. He was quite lucky not to be sold as a slave, which meant that he would enter Maklu with the status of a poor miner. Go with the flow. Wang Jung did not have much of a plan either. More accurately, given his current situation, he could devise little. He could only take each step as it came. The thing on his hand was a regulation bracelet. It was clipped to his wrist, and was rumored to be able to inhibit ability X. Any newcomer to Maklu had to wear one, whether one was rich or poor. It was said to prevent the Alliance's special forces or other forces from entering. Wang Jung could feel that this toy pierced the skin. Whether it had any concrete use, Wang Jung was not sure yet. But he was not willing to risk it. This mission was really something. It didn't leave him much room. It was meal time. The cabin door opened, and a person entered bearing a huge cauldron. It was 1,000 coins for a spoonful. Wang Jung took a look. It was swill, but it was also the only option. Wang Jung searched his whole body, but he had no money. He could only starve. The middle-aged man looked at the bowl in his own hand. After some indecision, he did not share it with Wang Jung. Wang Jung sat back down in his corner, closing his eyes slightly, as though disinterested in his surroundings. On the monitors in the cockpit, there were tens of these rooms. All quiet. TCH, what could happen? A bunch of trash. Besides, even if there really was someone, with the manacles on, they could do nothing but slave their lives away in the mines. I'm hoping for some decent ones myself. At least they'll be good at their work. Haha. Boss is very concerned about this lately. We better watch more carefully. Got it. Not many problems with this batch. But then again, if there are issues, it ain't our turn to check. But some are of really bad quality. When the time comes, let's just get rid of them. They won't be able to work on the surface anyway. We took special care when we got this lot. They're all quite healthy. We'll lose 10% at most. Boss should be pleased. 2 more days to wring these guys out. Relax. Old rules. The two laughed. Regardless of their intentions in coming, everyone, save the plutocrats, would be pod-free of their wealth, whether they were those seeking asylum or free men. As for those whose bodies were in a poor state, or had no money, unless they had hardy constitutions, they would not make it to the surface. Wang Zheng bided his time quietly, conserving energy. He had no food, but the circumstances were not that bad. He had been in much worse situations before. Zhang Feng had warned them, and Wang Zheng had been mentally prepared. In just a little more than an hour, Wang Zheng was already completely adjusted to his surroundings. All that was left to do was to wait for arrival. After 5 or 6 hours, the cabin door opened. Everyone watched, eyes wide in fear. A bunch of armed men entered, hauling away a sickly guy. That person struggled weakly, but was knocked out by a rap from the gun. The cabin door shut again. Was he a slave? Wang Zheng suddenly asked. Slave? That guy had no money, and is not as fit as a youngster like you. Even if you sent him down, he can't do the work. You think Fallen Paradise is a charity? The middle-aged man smirked. Eyeing Wang Zheng, the middle-aged man smiled. Punk, you must have come from a decent background, from the looks of you. How did you come here? Wang Zheng did not say anything. Sunday Jiao, arson and prison break. Wang Zheng thought it was all too childish. He wondered if they had even thought thoroughly about it. The middle-aged man looked past it. Youngster, Maklu is a dangerous place. It's not so easy to survive. You and me got some fate. What do you say we work together? When dinner comes in a while, I'll share it with ya. Wang Zheng eyed the man, and slightly shook his head. The middle-aged man did not press. He retreated to his corner again, but at this moment, 2 people stood up and headed for the middle-aged man. And then 2 more people stood up. The middle-aged man seemed to sense the danger. He clutched his own bag and, feeling helpless, suddenly scampered over to Wang Zheng. The 5 burly guys had crowded over. Give us the bag, or we'll beat you to death. Give us the bag. All 5 had malevolent looks on their faces. In this place, survival was paramount. But there was no real point here. Those who truly had money and use would not be huddled in this low-class cabin. You can't do this. All shout. The ear-stud-wearing leader laughed. Holler all you want. See if anyone responds. Punk. Go away. This is none of your business. Wang Zheng lifted his head. His face was expressionless, but he just said one word. Scram. Lookin', the tattooed, ear-studded leader had just begun his sentence when his vision blacked. With a loud bang, he flew 7 or 8 meters, sprawled unmoving on the ground. Wang Zheng slowly retracted his leg, looking at the other 4. They started, and hurriedly dispersed. Wang Zheng sat down slowly. Back to your place. I've already paid you for that cigarette. The middle-aged man started. I can. Wang Zheng wagged a finger, and the middle-aged man could only return to his place. If he had known, he would have bought an additional meal just now. Then this guy would definitely protect him. But after Wang Zheng acted, others looked over covetously, but no one moved. There was not much of a logic to this place. The only way to avoid trouble was to set your own rules. Wang Zheng closed his eyes and conserved his energy, waiting for their arrival. This world was not that big. Although he had entered halfway, what was this Easter project? What did the military mean? Was he here to gather information, or expose the plan? Would someone meet him? How was he supposed to extricate? It seemed like nothing at all. Suddenly, the corner of Wang Zheng's mouth twitched. Since there was nothing at all, did that mean he could do as he wanted? He liked a world with no rules. Planet Maklu's biggest city, Fallen Paradise. Many who had never been here might have thought it backward and rustic. This thinking was entirely correct, because Maklu's environment was indeed harsh. There was no day, only eternal night. Everything was sustained by electricity. However, Fallen Paradise was one of the most affluent cities in the Milky Way. This place not only produced rare minerals, but was also strong, attracting many asylum seekers who brought enormous amounts of money and connections. A gray area often meant a confluence of destitution and wealth. Of course, the price was also high. Compared to the affluence of the city, the other extreme was the slum and mines, which was concerned with the dangerous but important work. The shuttle had arrived at its destination. Everyone had to accept decontamination first. The high-pressure water was not comfortable, a little like pig washing. And on the other side was the VIP entrance. A few clusters of people had stepped down to the waiting red carpet and lights, and were received with fresh flowers and beautiful ladies. Mr. Chibing, Mr. Kulifa, I hope the journey has not been too arduous. Welcome, esteemed guests, to Fallen Paradise. Here, both of you will be treated like gods. Your wishes are our command. A sexy beauty spoke. She wore a beige blouse, a white short skirt, and a pair of black high heels. Her neckline was just nice, barely revealing anything. From her aura, she was clearly from a high-class background, and carried herself with confidence. The pair exchanged looks and smiled. They had finally arrived on the surface. Here, they were finally safe. Even the Federation people could not dream of entering. At most they could do it sneakily, but sneaks always met with a bad ending. That was why this place had the name of Fallen Paradise. Money was not the key. Money combined with guaranteed safety was the most important thing. And on the other side, Wang Zheng and the rest were being shepherded off the shuttle by armed soldiers. They caught a fleeting glimpse of the luxurious city, but were very quickly packed into a box. Although they were free men, at Fallen Paradise, this meant that they were low-class people only slightly better off than slaves. Far away at Elite Academy X, Zhang Feng had just received intelligence that all 6 had already been dispatched to their mission destinations. This mission's difficulty was extremely high. More accurately, these were missions that the Milky Way Alliance agonized over. Either it was not convenient to directly intervene, or the difficulty was too high. They had remained unsolved for a long time. Just as Zhang Feng said, these were missions that tested both brains and brawn. One could even say that luck played a very big role. Half died before they even reached the surface due to bad luck. Seemed like their 6 guys were pretty fortunate. This time around, Wang Zheng, Olivius, and Lear had the most difficult missions. Of course, they did not have to complete them. The important thing was experiencing the process. As for the Milky Way, ability was not the most important, because ability was a double-edged sword. Once they abandoned the Milky Way Alliance, then they also posed the greatest threat. And there was no way to resolve that. At present, of the people they had nurtured on the straight and narrow, a third had fallen to the gray places, or even completely entered the underworld. These places often had a way to seek out one's weakness. The mission this time was not centered around completion, but whether one could remain steadfast. Zhang Shan and the rest were speechless. Wang Zheng had disappeared again like a ghost, while Lear and Olivius had also suddenly gone on missions. A pity. Zhang Shan had wanted to go see the world with Wang Zheng. But that couldn't be helped. It simply meant that they were not at that level yet. Achilles could be close, but his own physical state had caused him to miss this opportunity. But perhaps it was all a blessing in disguise. Such missions were not always good things. Compared to Wang Zheng's miserable state, opening his eyes and breathing the fresh air, Zhang Shan and the rest were luxuriating in their glory. It was blissful. This was heavenly. The Greatest King competition's first season was over, but this was not the end. The school had ordered the teams to prepare anew and recruit, in order for more to be able to participate. And the mecha aspect had been greatly revamped. KO Group's mecha box had passed many inspections and was determined to be very suited to mecha usage. Many countries had already begun training with this new capability. And for Elite Academy X, who walked at the forefront, it was all the more so. This meant that mech pilots could use abilities similar to warping. To Zhang Shan, an extra short distance jump was no great advantage, but this was completely different for everyone else. Clearly, future battles would be harder, more complicated, and not simply limited to city terrain, but encompass all kinds of battle environments. The school wished for everyone to be able to participate, rather than for a few to dominate the glory. While Wang Zheng was not around, Achilles and the rest would have to shoulder the responsibility of defending Saruman Snake's glory. The only team that remained intact was Imperial Glory, who was also the most pitiful. Because while Wang Zheng and the rest had gone into battle, Imperial glory was still whole. This was a blow to Di Maria. Of course, this was the guess from the uninformed. But in fact, it was Aslan who had rejected this mission. Aslan had their own training methods. At the same time, they understood the mission that Elite Academy X had this time. Clearly, such things were not suited to Di Maria's status. The road to power could be walked by mastering oneself. At the same time, Di Maria needed to put down his needless pride. Wang Zheng had been in Fallen Paradise for a week now. Wang Zheng had not managed to enjoy how fallen the paradise was. He had spent the entire week mining, almost without seeing the light of day. But it was not as bad as it could have been. In this period of time, Wang Zheng could feel that they had categorized arrivals into a few classes. Even the freemen were divided into the physically strong and weak. Those whose bodies were weaker were just given a masturbation product. While those deemed young, strong, and suitable for long-term use, like Wang Zheng, were given a day's holiday each month, where they could take a tenth of their wages to Fallen Paradise and enjoy themselves. As long as one had money, one could thoroughly enjoy being here. Of course, the mine operators were not at all worried that people would escape. Those who escaped faced terrible fates. Besides, while their wrists were cuffed with that gadget, unless you cut off your hand with an axe, there was no game to play. And those with such determination would not be here. Wang Zheng's job was simple. The work time was at least 10 hours, and no one cared if you did more. 10 people made a squad, and they were put in charge of a patch. Salary was pegged to the mining quantity and quality. Of course, quantity alone was not viable. If one was lucky and dug up some rare mineral, then there could be a chance to change one's fate, and make at least a small fortune. It was rumored that someone had unearthed a huge sky crystal. Not only had they removed their bracelet, but had also received a reward which allowed them to find a job in Fallen Paradise and enjoy life. Wang Zheng was not really interested in that. He was an excellent miner, because they used Hercules mecha here, fitted with drill bits and other mining tools. He played no tricks, and did not consider killing his way out of there. Wang Zheng calmly did his share. In a week, his workload was multifold of others. After work, he rested without causing trouble. Even the section head felt that this young man was a dependable one. Honest laborers were welcome anywhere, especially in mining. That was why Wang Zheng's group had better grub than others, with at least some meat. Although there was not much time for chit-chat, Wang Zheng quickly picked up news from others. A Manalasuo person who had quickly become familiar with Wang Zheng had been here for over a decade. He had forgotten why he had come here in the beginning, and he was too lazy to leave. It was familiar work, with 3 or 4 days of leave a month, and one could apply for leave. He had not saved money, basically spending it in the vault that was Fallen Paradise. People here called him Old Xiao. Perhaps to him, this was not a bad job. Old Xiao was a very friendly person, but he loved to brag. He was so on and so forth outside, and got respect everywhere. He could do anything, and was familiar with the 3 bosses of Fallen Paradise. This guy's way of speaking was humorous and interesting. Listening to his rambles during break time always got people laughing. This guy could make a living as a speaker. Naturally, no one gave much credence to his claim that he was familiar with the bosses. After all, he was not even a section head. But it was true that the section heads showed him some respect out of deference to his years. After the meal, everyone returned to their own sections. Each person was in charge of one cave, much like a lord of a cave. In truth, the work here was exhausting. Besides Old Xiao, who enjoyed it, most of the others were not too willing to talk. After all, only Old Xiao genuinely treated this as a job. Soon, everyone had left. Wang Zheng was not tired. Although their section was a little darker, murkier, and dirtier, it did not seem particularly dangerous. Seemed like his work was still credited, and he had been allocated to a better place. Time seemed not to move. There was more than half a month before they could go out. Fallen Paradise was controlled by the 3 major powers. It was impossible to complete his mission here. And he had to find some way to get in touch with these 3 powers. Gambling, underground wrestling, or something else. The key was how to get close. Wang Zheng looked at himself in the mirror. He did not feel like he could hide who he was. If he did not show it, no one would notice him. But if he displayed uncommon ability, he did not think that everyone in this place would be completely vapid. But if he did not show it, how could he get close to those people? Could it be that he had to mine well enough to become the mining MVP? Wang Zheng was at a loss. Just as Zhang Feng had said, many things could not be resolved with violence alone. This had stumped even an Earth rank warrior. Wang Zheng also knew that not revealing his ability was impossible. The key was how to display it, and find an entry point. Entry. Student Wang was still thinking, when a huge, black shadow appeared in front of him. A severe figure. DMN. Never around when it was needed, but always giving people a scare when it shouldn't be around. Long time no see, Charcoal. Wang Zheng was just about to tease Charcoal when he realized that this square Charcoal seemed to be in a morose state. Robots could be sad. Charcoal stared at the mine unmoving, as though in a reverie. Even without intellectual limits, robots would not have Charcoal's expression. This was not a robot's nature, but it indeed conveyed the feeling. It was a long time before Charcoal turned around to look at Wang Zheng. That mournful expression gave Wang Zheng the chills. Kiki, Charcoal, long time no see. Can you not look at me like that? He had initially planned to tease Charcoal. Wang Zheng guessed that it had seen something of the past. Besides, he and Bonehead were both enigmatic existences. Charcoal nodded, expression unchanging. What, are you familiar with this place? Wang Zheng asked. Charcoal sighed in a very human fashion. It's like the place I lived in with my master before. Wang Zheng was prepared to listen to a story. After all, what he had the most of here was time. Wang Zheng also wanted to know the history of legends. But just as Wang Zheng had prepared his listening ear, Charcoal stopped. And then, Wang Zheng could not resist prompting. Charcoal's eyes became bright and then reverted to their normal state. That's it. DMN, he must be joking. These guys. Bonehead liked to bully him, and Charcoal liked to prank him. Really, forget it. He couldn't do anything to them either. Besides, this was his biggest trump card in this world. It was what had made him. Charcoal, why did you disappear for so long? If it wasn't for Bonehead's help, I would have died, Wang Zheng said casually. Charcoal's expression was grave. There's something wrong with your body. Wang Zheng shrugged carelessly. I don't feel pain. It doesn't seem to be a problem. It's easier to fight as well. Compared to his life, Wang Zheng indeed regarded losing his pain faculties as minor. At least Bonehead had been around then. Charcoal shook his head slightly. No pain, no love. Wang Zheng shivered. Charcoal, enough with the mushiness, okay. Have you lost your mind while cooped up recently? Charcoal continued without the slightest trace of humor. Losing one's sense of pain will cause a human to become numb. As time passes, cognitive patterns will change. Pain is humanity's foundation to maintaining order. Charcoal's words made Wang Zheng think. Wang Zheng was not stupid. Although he believed that he would not change, if he continued to be desensitized, and constantly be devoid of feeling, what would he become? Charcoal continued to look at Wang Zheng, and continued nagging. When your sense of pain disappears, your sense of feeling gradually disappears as well. Eventually, you don't feel anything anymore, and even basic human procreation. At this point, even the unshakable Wang Zheng paled. Damn, that's an existence worse than death. Charcoal showed some satisfaction at Wang Zheng's response. Exactly. I've always been curious about the Rubik's Cube's existence. It seemed like a thing out of Li Feng's time. But the bloodthirst was too heavy. Now I understand. He must be a product of another dimension civilization. His goal is not to nurture strong warriors, but to train super soldiers that don't die, Charcoal said. Wang Zheng naturally understood. He had heard much of the legend of Li Feng and Wang Dong. Compounded with these two strange things before his very eyes, this meant that this Li Feng was not that Li Feng in that legend. In this dimension, Li Feng was undoubtedly a hero, but in another dimension, Li Feng was probably a demon king who had used the Rubik's Cube to create super soldiers and dominate the universe. DMN, what a troublesome thing. But back to the important point. Kiki, Charcoal, I always knew you were the best from the start. How do we solve this pain problem? Since you're so powerful, you must have a solution. Internally, Wang Zheng was screaming. He did not want to be doomed. Why hadn't he thought about this at the start? Well, even if he had no choice. Charcoal shook his head. Master, I'm just a soul imprint. Besides, I must follow your path, and constantly be in contact. I have no more practical use. Boom. The sky fell on him with Charcoal's casual words. He meant that he was FCKED. To a man, this was too fatal. Wang Zheng was starting to despair. How would he live his life from now on? The world turned to gray, no, black. Charcoal continued, luckily, I adjusted your primordial regression technique a while back. A killing type primordial regression technique would be completely helpless in your current situation. Wang Zheng was seized with a sudden urge to smash this blockhead on the floor and stomp on him. Would he die if he didn't brag? You mean there's hope? Charcoal nodded. The Rubik's Cube should be using this method to continually unearth the potential of the tested. At the same time, they will be lost in power, and lose their humanity, eventually becoming a war machine. But after I recalibrated your regression technique, its limits on you are only at the second stage of primordial regression technique. If you elevate yourself to the third stage, the spell will be broken. Wang Zheng hugged Charcoal, planting a kiss on its shiny, black skull. This guy was really his savior. For a while back there, he had contemplated asking Yan Xiaozu to give birth to a few more and let him adopt. But Master, Bonehead has no bad intentions. It simply has no way to defeat the principles of the Rubik's Cube. You must be cautious the next time you use its power. Each time you use it, the price you pay will only increase, even beyond the point where you can afford, Charcoal said. Wang Zheng smiled and nodded. He did not really mind this. Bonehead had saved him countless times before. Even if he would one day be finished, he would surrender to it. Of course, if it could be helped, he would rather be a normal person. He had chosen this path, and could not resent anyone. He would simply live on. Oh, Charcoal, come chat with me if you've nothing to do. It's boring being alone. Besides, I would still like to learn how to elevate my primordial regression technique. Wang Zheng felt like he could not neglect this black blockhead. Master, my memory needs stimulation. I cannot give you too much help frequently, Charcoal said seriously. This blockhead. Wang Zheng could do nothing about him. He did not put him in a hard spot, but seeing that Charcoal had just saved his manhood, he would reserve his comments. Retrieving Charcoal, Wang Zheng was quiet for a while. He knew that the dangers of using the skeleton mech were high, but he had not expected it to be this serious. Back then, the bloodthirst of the primordial regression technique had been too great, and there had been no feedback. Ever since he changed to the current primordial regression technique, things had been much better. As for the parallel dimension thing, he would not dwell over long on these painful things. He would tell Old Merchant the good news the next time he saw him. In the end, even Old Merchant had begun to be suspicious of the thing's origin. In conclusion, this Rubik's Cube might very well have come from another dimension. Old Merchant had always said that the parallel dimensional theory was the highest law, specially used to counter gods. No matter how advanced a civilization, it would always move towards death, but could not traverse the universe. But the fact that the Rubik's Cube could come over meant that there had to be some rifts remaining, ones that had originated from the little golden leaps from Li Feng's civilization. The chances that Old Merchant would stumble across it were billions to one. He tapped his own head. Wang Zheng felt like he could think on this no longer. He was just a miner, a diligent miner. Hopping into the Hercules, Wang Zheng started up the engine. Humming one of Wei Yan's little tunes, he started work. Actually, this place was not as bad as the outside world imagined. But anyone who came here would be paying back dues from their past, so there was no need for resentment. Or they were on a mission like himself. Zuckerberg was in a good mood in the last 2 days. This batch of newcomers was in good shape, especially that youngster Sunday Zhao. Not only did he work well, but he was always optimistic. He had given old Xiao special privileges not only because of his experience, but because his optimistic attitude had spared him much trouble. That was why Zone D, which he was in charge of, always performed better, and made him look good in front of the boss. It was work. You win, I win, everybody wins. As long as he had no trouble, he was happy. If he had free time, he would rather go into the city to enjoy himself. This Sunday Zhao worked very well. Under his efforts, everyone's productive efficiency increased. It was just his name that was a joke. What were his parents thinking to give him such a name? But that was how it was. Otherwise, he would not be here mining. Just like that, Wang Zheng hummed as he worked while practicing the primordial regression technique. Ever since the end of the Greatest King competition, Wang Zheng had not known such peace and quiet. Wang Zheng had this strength, which was to rid himself of stray thoughts. Since he could not help it, he would not think about it, but instead think about things he could change. That was why he often switched methods during his mining. As long as one was in a good physical and mental condition, mining was also training. It was just that he ate a bit more than average. But seeing that he produced twice the average load, Zuckerberg was nonchalant about it. The able eating more was just. He again increased the supplies of Section 16 as a reward. Sustaining this for a day was easy. But for half a month, there needed to be some work-life balance. Zuckerberg decided to give Sunday Zhao a day to rest and find some work-life balance. He did not want this guy to tire himself out. In order to keep this guy out of trouble, he had sent old Xiao with him. Finally, Wang Zheng's first holiday in Fallen Paradise. He could breathe some of the fresher air outside. It was a thing to lift one's heart. In the beautiful but lonely night sky, a silver warship cruised silently. This was one of the most advanced explorer warships in the galaxy, designed to explore unknown planets. Currently, it was on a planet far away from the human world. Meng Tian rose from sleep. She took a deep breath and lightly waved her hand, awakening the lights in the bedroom and dissipating the dreams in her mind. The Skylink, connected to the outside of the warship, repeatedly flashed, indicating the current situation. Warship time. 23:30. Simulated environment of late night. Mission time. 2400 cockpit. Meng Tian came down from the bed. Her snow-white feet treaded on the icy floor, driving away the fuzziness of sleep. She had been dreaming a lot lately. The further she was, the less composed she felt. Meng Tian smiled at herself mockingly. Shedding the close-fitting battle armor, Meng Tian walked into a square bathroom that could only fit one. Even when sleeping, one had to maintain a state where one could enter battle, alert, at any moment. Only in the bath could one relax a little. Water rolled down her nubile body, bringing true wakefulness. Ship time. 23:55. Meng Tian arrived in the cockpit punctually. Meng Tian. The ship captain Cameron nodded to her with a smile. Major General Cameron. Meng Tian saluted, pencil straight and without a hint of slack. In the military, if female commanders wanted to gain the status that they should be accorded, they had to be even stricter, even stronger than the men. At ease. From 0 hours to 5 hours, you will pilot the warship. The course has already been entered into the automatic navigation system. Your mission is to adjust the fine controls according to real-time circumstances. Cameron delegated the mission. Yes, sir. Meng Tian watched the time. Only when the second hand jumped exactly to 0 hours did she step forward to commence the change of command with ship captain, Major General Cameron. Standard checking procedure, confirmation of ship course, confirmation of the automatic navigation safety lock, emergency state authorization. After the handover, Cameron confirmed everything again before leaving the cockpit. Meng Tian sat down on the main pilot seat. She again confirmed the situation of the entire ship and then opened her planetary map. As a temporary captain's responsibility, she constantly recorded the prior course, as well as the interstellar landmarks and references. Recording at the same time was the co-pilot Gnome. Each meticulously kept to their post. Because this was a completely alien planet, and they were the first humans to set foot here. 3 weeks ago, an explorer troop had discovered a wormhole signal from this starfield. The warship that Meng Tian was on had been delegated to do the first reconnaissance. Each wormhole was a major discovery. It was a shortcut that could traverse planets. In a matter of seconds, one could cross hundreds, even thousands, of light years. Of course, this was if it was well formed. And traveling on a foreign planet, black holes, interstellar magnetic explosions, etc. were all extremely dangerous. Losing the course was the most terrifying thing that could happen. The moment there was an error in the recording pattern, and one was unable to confirm the original reference point on the stellar map, the entire universe would become an enemy. This was the same logic as when humanity had first lost their course in the ocean. Only, oceans had ends, the universe did not. That was why the captain and vice captain recorded at the same time, in addition to the warship's automatic records. This was the standard navigation procedure, but it was still not foolproof. A stellar storm could cause the crew to diverge from the course and throw off the stellar reference points. Many times, it depended on the captain's ability and experience. Gnome looked at Meng Tian with complex emotions. Normally, when Cameron rested, he was the one responsible for piloting. But as Meng Tian displayed her ability more and more, Cameron had come to respect her ability more and more. As a captain, he admired Meng Tian's calm and undistracted mind. On such a dangerous voyage, only Meng Tian had always maintained her focus. Gnome was still uncomfortable. He felt that his own authority was severely threatened. But she was an elite from the college, with no shortcomings in many aspects. And she was pretty, and popular. In a few simulations, she had far surpassed him in score. Gnome's only advantage was seniority. And clearly that had little use. Discovery of ER-type fixed star that can serve as a stellar reference mark. Preparing to raise energy panels. Level 2 shield test. Results good. Raising shields to highest level. Meng Tian methodically recorded this fixed star's radioactivities reference statistics. Flitting past the fixed star, the energy panels absorbed the radiation from the fixed star, converting it to standard energy and storing it to replenish the energy source. It was the insurance of a deep exploration flight. An exploration ship would not pass up on any opportunity to store energy. After 10 minutes, the warship completed the stellar map record and began to pick up speed. The warship circled on a one-track orbit, trying to utilize the gravity of the fixed star to pick up speed. Approaching departure speed, everyone kept their eyes wide open and carefully completed their own missions. No one could confirm that this was a safe route. One must know that each safe route in deep space was formed through the blood and tears of countless explorers. The warrant officer in charge of radar sweeps constantly wiped his forehead, which was already free of sweat. The motion helped him feel better. The warship circled the gravitational line of the fixed star. Just as the warship was about to leave, the cockpit viewfinder flashed. The optical telescope captured some large mass. HUM. A shrill alarm rang in the cockpit. Extreme danger. Extreme danger. Enlarge. Following the command, the captured image from the viewfinder became clear. A belt formed of debris barred the path in front of the warship. Caught by the sway of the fixed star's gravity, the debris was flying towards the fixed star. And the warship had just accelerated in the opposite direction, towards this debris belt. Kaneki jumped up and shouted, "How could such a huge belt of debris not have been detected?" A blind spot caused by the hugeness of the fixed star. The warrant officer in charge of the radar sweeps paled upon seeing his screen. The whole thing was blank. He could not see the presence of the debris. In theory, he had done this countless times. But when seen for real, he still felt like it was a fatal disaster. The warship continued to pick up speed. In 1 minute, the warship would collide with this debris field. This was completely different from a normal debris belt. This debris field was high-velocity debris, attracted by the fixed star's gravity. Even the smallest piece at that speed would be like a cannon shot from one of the superpowers' warship's main guns. Seeing this scene, the entire cockpit was stunned. Among the field, there was still high-damage debris. When close to the fixed star's unstable situation, these volatile debris would explode like bombs under the slightest shake. They were finished. At this distance and this speed, they would definitely collide with this debris field charging towards the fixed star. They could not avoid it. Given the defenses of a main god-tier warship, just high-velocity debris alone was fatal. In addition to the unstable energy debris, the shadow of death numbed all their tongues. Alert the commander. He had neither the time nor the effort to spare to reprimand the radar warrant officer. Gnome immediately pressed the communication device of the commander, but all he heard was static from the receiver. The fixed star storm had interfered with the sweep, as well as the transmission of the communicators. Commence standard evasion procedures. Circle the debris field. Continue the orbit of the fixed star. Gnome's face was white. He gave the order. Only after the words had been spoken did he realize that he was sitting in the co-pilot chair, and did not have the authorization of the commander to complete it. Seeing Gnome unable to fulfill the command, everyone in the cockpit came to their senses and looked to Meng Tian, who should be taking control at this moment. What was she doing? Was she petrified with fear? Besides her order to enlarge the image at the onset, she had not made any other sound. Was she just a bookworm from the college? She had become senseless when faced with real danger. At this moment, Meng Tian was still frantically drawing on a screen. The entire cockpit was in despair. They were doomed. No way to contact the commander, and the only representative with the commander authorization was still doing math for her college homework. Could this wench be depended on? 1 minute left. The warrant officer's face turned green. He had already calculated the time until the warship collided with the debris belt. Gnome surged to his feet. There is still time. Give me the control key. Each to your stations and prepare to execute standard evasive procedures. Calm down. Meng Tian glanced at him with little feeling, making her last variable calculation. How could one be calm? If they did not act, they would definitely die. They would not even have the slightest chance of survival. All they could hear was the warrant officer constantly counting down. 53. Attention. Cut the autopilot and switch to manual. Manual control. Everyone started. The room was starting to turn cold. Subconsciously, they were already turning to obey orders. Inaction meant they would be sitting ducks. In this instant, there was no time to dwell on it. Their instinctive choice was to obey. This was the reason why soldiers were drilled again and again. They should not use their brains in the critical moment. Autopilot disconnected. Manual control online. Complete. KACHAK. Manual controls appeared in front of Meng Tian. Don't stop the countdown. The radar officer started, then continued counting in a wavering voice. 47 seconds. Gnome's entire body was trembling. You're crazy. There's still a chance to avoid it with autopilot. In the cockpit, more than half agreed with him. But at this moment, commands from the commander's seat were absolute orders. Even if it was a mistake, or ordering them to their death, disobedience would see them to an even worse end, even if they survived. For soldiers, obeying orders was the first duty. For a crew sailing into the unknown, deep space, this phrase was the most basic rule. The commander was king, live or die. Fire weapons systems. Charge the 12 supplementary cannons at the front of the ship. Meng Tian did not heed Gnome's cries. Or rather, at this time, she tuned out all distracting noises. Her voice was calm and clear. Such composure was felt by everyone. Her gaze was locked on the image frozen on the viewfinder telescope. Within her composure was calculation. Ability X light shone from her eyes. 4. 12 supplementary cannons charging. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, charging complete. The weapons warrant officer confirmed. 30. The radar warrant officer's voice. Rumble. The ship was shaking. This was the drawback of manual control. It could not maintain stability. The entire warship shook. Troops who did not know the situation were promptly following training procedures, and strapping themselves down. But in the cockpit, the mood was despair. Because Meng Tian's next order was, accelerate. Accelerate. Given their current speed, if they hit a high-speed rock, their outer energy shields would be unable to hold up. Accelerate. Wouldn't that cause them to die in an even worse fashion? Rumble, rumble, rumble. But in the end, they were trained warrant officers of quality. Meng Tian was the commander, and her orders were to be obeyed. Countdown accelerated. 3, 2. The radar officer recalculated the collision time after the acceleration. Everyone shut their eyes. On the viewfinder, they could already see the debris. It looked far, but it would be the blink of an eye before collision. Boom. At this moment, the 12 supplementary cannons on the fore were firing with a rhythm. Everyone felt the ship tremble violently. The warship, accelerating forward, was actually nimbly flying a course. Each time it fired, a piece of debris was blasted apart with a shockwave that swept away a shower of debris. It was dangerous, but it cleared a space without debris. The warship was still accelerating. It fought through the space blasted by the highly volatile debris and slipped through before the debris behind had time to arrive. But not all debris could be avoided. Boom, boom, boom. Each time they were hit, it was like being hit by a Zeus shield-level main cannon, causing the hull of the ship to creak. At this moment, the cockpit was in disarray. Fortunately, they were all elites, and very quickly stabilized the core. The sheikhs were unable to throw Meng Tian off in the slightest. Her hands were constantly piloting the manual controls. Shadows slipped past. Each time, her control was without hesitation. Dodging, each high-speed ship's trajectory was controlled to the fine details. The calculations took into consideration the fire. The 12 cannons fired each time to stave off a fatal rock. And the rest were unable to break past the energy shield. In just 10 seconds, everyone calmed down. They knew what Meng Tian was trying to do. More importantly, they could feel the confidence and control over the ship that Meng Tian was radiating. A mech pilot had a sense when piloting a mech, and a commander also had a sense for a ship. At that moment, Meng Tian was one with the warship. They charged towards the cluster of debris. Faced with such a situation, they could choose to avoid it, but they might be crushed by the debris. They might also have been sucked into the fixed star. There was only one choice: to accelerate preemptively and fly to meet it. Life or death. Everyone held their breath and waited. At this moment, the slightest tremble in the hands would spell death. Finally, the long-charging main cannon fired, sweeping away all the debris in front of them. The last hurdle. Ahead was an even bigger cluster of debris, and the warship was unable to fire anymore. Deactivate energy shields, Meng Tian ordered calmly. From the side, the workers were infected by Meng Tian's aura. They responded without even processing the order. The energy shields were switched off. All energy was concentrated in accelerating the ship. The last thrust. Relative to their speed, everyone could almost feel the huge rocks about to smash them to powder. Boom. A gigantic tremor. Following which, the ship stabilized. The warship sounded. Shuttle entering warp speed state. At this moment, everyone's faces were a little pale, and Meng Tian forced herself to be calm. She was the stand-in commander. At this instant, she held the responsibility. Everyone could panic. Save her. Each station, check the ship's damage. Congratulations everyone. We successfully made the great escape. Thank you. ... The corner of Meng Tian's mouth was upturned in a slight smile, and the warship's members were stunned. She actually knew how to smile, and so prettily. Engine capability light damage, controllable. Energy currently recovering. Port light damage. Recommended to repair within 3 hours. ... Each worker on the ship was methodically assessing the situation. The commander was the ship's compass. As a commander, one needed to take responsibility for the whole ship. In this instant, Gnome finally realized why he was only suited to be a co-pilot, and not the commander. Lieutenant Colonel Gnome, you have the command, Meng Tian said. The brave front she had put up aside, she was actually about to collapse. Yes, Commander. Gnome saluted, and this time it was from the heart. In space exploration, there was no method that was absolutely right or wrong. Only results that were absolutely right or wrong.